Okay, well, this is Beyond the Weekend, a podcast for weekend enthusiasts.
Do you have weekends?
You can't get enough of weekends. This is your podcast.
This is
What
it.
else is there to do?
Yeah, so I am your host today. My name's Matt Nissen, and I am joined today in the studio by Chad Leonard
Hey.
and Becca Pickrel.
What's up?
Good enthusiastic greeting.
Woo!
It's a good start.
What's up?
And over here as well is Paul Heath.
Hello.
He is actually here, even though you can't see him. It's not an AI-generated voice. We just added into.
That's exactly what you would say
Exactly.
if I was.
It's probably very close to that being a possibility now, that you could do that and just be like, I need a fourth person for this podcast. Can I get an AI-generated voice to come in?
Playing the producer back there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
So we are here today. You might be asking, why are we here today? We are here today because we are going to be talking about worship a little bit. And, you know, this podcast, I was thinking about it. This podcast is called Beyond the Weekend. But essentially what has happened in this podcast is we've talked about half the weekend. So if anything, it should be called Beyond half the weekend.
50% credit.
So for the first time ever, this is beyond the other half of the weekend.
Oh,
Where we're going to talk about worship.
Finally.
Finally.
we've been waiting.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about the set this weekend?
Oh no. Sometimes I wonder.
Yeah. So
And then I'm like-
did it hit well?
And then I'm like, we were the problem.
It's our
It
fault.
was us.
Sometimes.
Like-
No, it's not us. We do have this conversation sometimes, though, as to whether or not how it went over the weekend.
Yeah,
Whether
sure.
everything, because there's like we do different songs. It's different rooms, different people. You never know exactly how it's gonna go. Like when you put a group of songs together. But this weekend felt good, I
I
thought.
thought so. It was great.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember. It feels like,
A week ago.
Yeah. Because tomorrow's
I mean,
church.
it was a
so
week ago.
like, yes. I mean, but Sunday was not. Sunday
True.
was.
True.
Well, never mind. Sorry.
It went great.
Timeline.
went great.
It went great.
went great.
Timeline. It was
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah,
I had a good time.
that's good. Okay, so that's it. We
It was
Well,
done.
that
We did
was
it.
the other half of the
That's really good. Thanks for
weekend.
tuning in, everyone.
yes.
Great talk.
Okay, so what we're actually going to do today, we're gonna talk through some questions. I think at the end of the podcast last week, Matt asked you guys to send in questions that you might have about worship, because I think all of us get questions pretty often from people about a variety of subjects. We even, like the three of us here, went and talked to like the young adults group about questions that they had about worship. And when we were doing that, we're like, oh, this is good. It might be good just to talk to the whole church about some of these questions. So you guys sent some questions in. We have some questions from that that we're going to talk about. But before we do that, I want to take just a couple minutes and just have you guys talk about yourselves for a little bit. If you want to just tell us how long you've been leading worship for, how long you've been at New Heights, and maybe then just tell us a little bit what you do here at New Heights, and then tell us a little bit about your family. That'd be great. Chad, you want to start us off?
I do want to start us off.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for asking.
I'm glad you didn't say no.
I was about to say no. If you were like, go first, I was like, no. Please
Okay,
no.
now you're going first.
No.
Chad.
Yes. So I'm
wants
Chad. I have been on staff here at New Heights for about 18 years, in different roles, mostly leading worship. And I've been leading worship for probably a lot longer than that. I don't know, over 20, pushing 23 years of leading worship, maybe longer. I was at a couple churches before being on staff here, church planting, and Dad's a pastor, so I grew up in church. My mom was a worship leader, so
Great.
that's it.
Okay, awesome. Becca?
My turn. You didn't talk about your family.
Oh, yeah,
so I
tell
was
us about
waiting
your
for you
family.
to talk about
Yeah,
your
yeah.
family.
Yeah, I
I mean,
have a
they're
family.
important.
They're great.
They are
All right,
great.
good enough.
All right, now my turn.
Chad's family's
Oh,
great.
wait.
No, go ahead.
I have a great family. My wife, April, is a kindergarten teacher, and I have two kids, Grace and Jude. Grace is in her sophomore year of college, and Jude is a junior in high school. Yeah, playing football right now for
Nice.
Skyview. Go Storm.
All right, that's good.
Woo.
Okay.
Okay,
Becca.
my turn for real. Okay,
Yeah.
my name's Becca. I have been on staff in New Heights for almost 4 years, but serving like almost 10, which feels like a long time because I always feel like it hasn't been very long, but it has. That's a long time.
It is a long time.
Yeah.
And I think leading worship for probably about 20 years. Like I started playing, I was telling them the other day, I started playing because my parents didn't want to take me home, like from church. They were like, they like left me at church with my siblings, and the church that we went to had high school group like only the last service on Sundays. And so there was like nothing for me to do. And then they were like, hey, why don't you come and join worship team? So I was like, oh, okay. So it was a good fit. I am
20 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I was
How old
like,
are you?
Yeah.
I'm like 100.
Just kidding.
I was like 10. I don't know. I was like too young to be really helpful, but I think they were like, oh, she's cute and around. Like, come, like, they were like, oh, look at this little kid. Like, your sister is like still here, so be here. And like, I don't know. It was fine. It worked. Yeah. I'm 100. Anyway, so I've been at New Heights for almost 10 years, and right now I am the production director, which sounds funny. I do tech and worship at our West Vancouver campus, which has been open for just over a year, which is great. And before that, I was like kind of just hopping around other campuses and on Thursday nights. And I have 2 kids as well, Ellis and Etta. They are 4 and 2. They're often running around. And my husband, Ryan, he also plays in our worship ministry, so he's very helpful.
Ellis and Etta are cute and around. Are they going to start playing some? Are going to start playing some music here soon?
That
Yeah,
sounds
yes,
familiar.
actually, Ellis started taking piano lessons, and he was
Perfect.
like, yeah, he
Wow.
was like, what he was
Can you
like.
play on Thursday?
Does he have? Is he in planning center yet? He was like, why do I have to do this? And I was like, because you want to play drums, and mommy's making you learn piano first. He's like,
That's
I
good.
just want to play drums.
That's good. That was
what
the
happened
rule
to
at my
me.
house growing up. You had to play piano.
I
And then
didn't
you
do
could other
that.
stuff.
Like my dad was like, "Don't ruin your talent. Here's a guitar." And I was like, "How am I supposed to
piano?
learn?" Yeah, I was like, "How am I supposed to learn?" He's like, "You'll figure it out."
And you
Thanks.
did.
I did. I mean, he wasn't wrong.
That's hilarious.
But I would have been way more successful, you know, than Ryan was like all the lessons, all the things. So we're just
Yeah.
trying to strike a balance.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I have been leading worship for about 20 years. I like kind of did music my whole life, but I didn't really start leading worship until after I got out of college, which is kind of later than most people. I started by helping my wife, who was a worship leader on staff at a church. I started leading with her, and then just led to where I am now. And I've been at New Heights for 16 years now. So I mostly lead at the Battleground campus. Like when I started was right when we were starting those campuses. So I've been at the Battleground campus ever since that started. And then I also have led at the Central Vancouver campus for every service that happens at night. So
There you go.
Sunday night, Saturday night, it's now Thursday night.
Night
It's
service.
just getting earlier and earlier. Pretty soon we'll be back to Sunday nights.
Night service. Wow.
That's
I
hilarious.
didn't realize that. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
You're the nighttime worship leader.
Yeah, I'm the nighttime worship leader. Worship nights.
With medicine.
My wife, April, is also a teacher, which is always a point of confusion
It
for
is.
people.
It's very confusing.
So
It's happened to
confusing.
both of us at various times. Gotten confused as to which teacher April is our wife. And I have 2 daughters, one in 4th grade, one in 8th grade. And yeah, that's it.
It took me years to figure out. I was like, April and a teacher?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, no, I'm thinking of Chad's wife.
Yeah, exactly.
No, wait, no, I'm thinking of Matt's wife. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
It's
very
very
true.
confusing for a very long time.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's not confusing for us.
It's not
I
confusing.
was about
No,
are
we
you
figured
guys
it out.
ever get confused?
We figured it
or
out
is
a
it,
long
like,
time
fine?
ago.
It's
Solid.
fine. It's worked out. It's all worked out.
Paul, I love it when you're going to edit this. How much crosstalk you're going to have to.
Sorry, and how much more can I into the mic?
More.
You know,
I just
I've-
need my inhaler.
I will say I learned my lesson the very first time I hosted like a podcast. My wife listened to it and she was like, "You should not say and like agree with everyone throughout the whole thing." And then I listened to it. I'm like, "You're definitely correct."
What about this?
I should have, but yeah, no, it's good.
Active listening.
Okay, that's
I just
terrible.
want
Yeah,
you
don't do that.
to. I just want you to feel hurt.
Okay.
You guys are the most
So-
used to microphones.
Hurt? Hurt or heard?
Okay, listen. My job is to enunciate. You understood me.
Well, I feel hurt. Okay, so we're gonna start off with we did that question, which was kind of fun. We're gonna start off with a little bit more fun question
goodness.
before we get to
Okay.
these serious ones. And I would love to know, we lead worship all the time, sometimes multiple times a week.
Sometimes at day, sometimes at night.
Which means which means there is a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong.
I don't know what you're talking
So
about.
Massive amount of opportunity.
I would like to know
Lots of space.
from you guys, what is one of the biggest worship fails that you can think of? A moment where you were just like, well, that could have gone better.
Maybe that's why I don't remember Sunday, because maybe it could have gone better.
Could have gone better.
Could have gone better.
Okay, who wants to go first? Who's got one?
Are we like going in order? Did we establish order?
No, there's no order.
Okay, cool. I mean, I can go.
I'm hosting. It's a free for all.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm good with that. I sometimes Chad though asks the question, he doesn't answer it because we talk. So I just want to make sure he gets to share his feelings today.
I'm not a talker.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Literally. No. Okay, I'll go. Mine happened recently, I think, and you both. This was great. I was like, things aren't really embarrassing at this point in our careers, and you guys were like, yes, but also remember. And I was like, oh, okay. I remember. I was like, yeah, that happened. So on this, for those of you who don't know, Thursday nights we record it and we use it for online streaming and everything. So it's like the way that it's navigated, it feels a little bit more controlled of an environment for us on stage. And we got up, and it was after the talk, right? It was after the talk, and I think I stood everybody up, and then it was a big fat chord to give me my start, and I just sang the complete wrong song. and
That's true.
right? And not even a song we were doing.
No.
It wasn't like I sang the next one. It wasn't like Isaiah gave me the wrong chord. So I thought, oh, I'm doing something else.
Yep.
I just sang
Yep.
the wrong entire first verse of a wrong song.
And we call that listening to the Holy Spirit.
I was just going where the Lord wanted me to go. I was being spirit led in the moment, and nobody else followed me.
I will say, in all fairness to you, those two songs
they're the
start
same.
almost identically.
Yep.
So
And there's a
they're
lot
like
of
the
those-
same tempo, the same key,
Yes.
the same.
Yes.
They just go right into
Yes.
it. There's no intro.
And there's a lot of those female-led songs that it's just like that,
Yep.
and then you gotta go. And I was
Yep.
I was like, eyes closed, not looking at the confidence monitor to be like, what are we doing? And then I'm like, huh. And I look over, and Isaiah's just panicked, looking at me, trying to give me something. And I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, this is not correct. And nor are the people in the room. They weren't following the Holy Spirit's prompting
I actually
either.
I can't remember how we resolved that.
I was going
Did
to
you
say,
just
I wasn't
switch
here.
over?
So what
Like,
do you guys
I
do?
will tell you what happened, which feels like a worship brag. But I got us, so I didn't want.
This is not the
Oh.
question.
I know.
Oh.
But you asked for what happened. It said chorus 2, 3, and I started singing the chorus to the correct song.
Okay.
So
us back.
it actually,
Yeah.
I got us right back on because it was this whole panic of are we gonna cut the tracks?
Yeah.
We don't like to cut the tracks. Are we gonna just go? And I was slid right into the chorus of the correct song, and it was.
Yeah.
But that was one of those moments.
Spoiler alert: we play with tracks.
Yeah.
So I think that story just answered 90% of the questions that we had.
Yeah. Well, I'm
No.
glad you handled that so well.
How many people were really confused when you started singing the chorus and they're like, whoa, what is this mashup right now?
They're like, this feels great.
They're like, I wonder if we're gonna
also-
go back to the other song on verse 2.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh man. But it was just one of those moments where I'm like, I was just exploring the worship space,
Yeah.
and this
you,
is what's
You
happening.
did save it very well.
Well, I
will
don't.
say
It
that.
does. It's not even that. It's mostly oh man. Okay. Here we are.
Yeah.
We're just doing it. You're
Yeah.
just doing all the
And that was
things.
just a couple weeks
It
ago.
was. It
So,
was
It does happen.
Yeah, it was a month ago.
Yeah. Chad, how about you?
Yeah. All right. So speaking of tracks, right?
Yeah.
You kind of let us know that we play with a click in our
Yes.
ears that
Yes.
helps us stay in time.
Yeah.
And then oftentimes we have backing tracks. So if we have lots of synth lines in a song. The keyboard player can't play all of them, and so we'll have those. So we used to play This Is Amazing Grace. We played it a lot.
Yeah.
And
It was a hit.
It was a hit.
Many years.
And that song had a very specific synth line at the beginning that was very loud and abrupt.
Yep.
So we had a set. I think it was a worship and baptism night.
It's
that
just going in my head, like
Yeah.
the synth line. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Right?
And there's like 4 layers
Yep.
to
Yeah,
it,
it's-
so that it's
it's
You
like,
don't end up singing the wrong song with that song.
yeah, you
No.
do not,
'Cause
because
you know what it is.
what's
You know what it is.
happening. There is
It comes
no
in
there's
right
no
at the
worship
top.
Yep.
Freely.
Yep.
And we opened with that song. We had the opener, and then someone came out on stage and talked for a little bit and prayed, and then we were heading into like a more of a quiet moment.
Yeah, it was a nice moment.
Yeah. We try to engineer these like moments that are like, okay, we're heading into like a softer, kind of quieter time.
Yep.
And the person who's running the tracks is supposed to cue the next
Person who's running the tracks.
I'm not gonna name names.
No one in this room.
No.
Nobody here right now.
It's not their fault. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But they went to cue the next track, but it started the the first track. So it's very quiet in the room, and then it goes. Yeah. So that happened, which is not great. It happened 3 more times.
In the same
The same thing.
in the same moment, or like again later.
No,
in
No,
the
this is
like
set?
he would stop it, and then he'd be like, okay,
Okay,
I'm
so
gonna
it was
fix
a
it.
he.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
fix it. Someone, they would stop
They,
it
Yeah.
they.
and then fix it.
Yeah. And then start it again. So just 4 times. Just that's and everyone's looking at us like, what are you doing? And we're like, we don't
And
know.
see, that's the thing is when the people are also like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in front of you, and you're like,
I mean, everyone laughed. It was
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, it got very ridiculous.
Yeah.
And,
And they did get a little bit more exasperated with every time. They'd be like, it would happen again.
So that was fun.
Yeah. It eventually got sorted out. I don't really know how.
I don't remember either,
he
but
pushed 2
we didn't-
instead. They pushed 2.
We didn't just quit.
no.
Man. Oh, man, that's good.
Okay, one of my biggest ones is I used to, when we would lead worship, I used to introduce everyone up to everyone on stage.
Sorry. I remember the story.
I do.
And
all of
my
us were there.
reason for doing it was just that, like, I don't want the people on stage who are leading songs to just be like these nameless people who no one knows. And so I was like, for a while, I'm like, I'm just gonna introduce everybody, so like, who everyone is. So we were doing a service one night, and there were 4 of us singing. It was, I believe, the 3 of us were
Yes.
singing,
Yep.
and then also Paul's wife, Emily, was singing.
Who?
Okay, wait. So we get done with the first song, and I'm like talking, and I go to start introducing everyone who's leading. And immediately as I start to do that, I immediately know that I have no idea what Emily's name is. Like, no clue. Like, this is just a random person beside me. And she's like literally standing right beside me. So I would usually just like go down the line, right? So I immediately like, I don't know this person's name. I'm going to start down at the other end. And maybe by the time I work my way back, I will have remembered. So I started at the other end, and I think I was like, this is Chad, this is Becca. And by the time I got to Emily, I still did not remember her name at all. And I literally, in that moment, I was like, I can't just not introduce her. I can't just like say nothing. So I was like, and I don't remember what your name is.
Now-
I say this into the microphone.
Yeah.
Then there's like 500 people in the room. It was a very full service.
Now, to be clear,
How long? Yeah.
it's not like you had just met her.
No, I had
No.
probably known Emily for like 10 years
Yes.
at this point.
Yes.
A very long time. Now, as soon as I do that, I'm like, I don't remember what your name is. And she does not help me out at all.
No.
She's not like, my name's Emily. She's like, she looks at me and she's like, are you serious right now? Like it was a bit.
But,
like I was,
but you do jokes.
I know I do
You
joke.
do the jokes.
I
so
do
I
joke.
could imagine her. She's so sweet.
And
I
I
could
really
imagine
think that's
her
what she
being
thought it
like,
was. She was like-
that's joking.
She was like, this
Like-
is not. It was very
Now-
much.
now's
it was very
not
much
the
like,
time,
this is
but-
not funny. He's like, "Are you serious right now?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm serious. I have no idea what your name is.
Help me.
And the room is like dying of laughter. And I'm
So
just
funny.
like, hey, left hanging out to dry.
Yep.
She's not telling me what her
Oh,
name is.
my goodness.
She never does tell me what her name is. It pops into my head after a certain amount of time, and I'm like, Emily, your name's Emily. And the whole room applauded.
I'm
And it
surprised
was-
nobody said Emily from that
I don't.
out
I
there.
don't think they
You
did.
maybe had
No.
your ears in, you couldn't tell.
Maybe
but
they
gosh.
did. Maybe one of you said it, and that's how I remembered it. I don't
Or like
remember.
whispering it. That's why we need talk back. We need talk back, Mike.
But
Talk
that
back,
was.
Mike. Solve it all.
And I have never introduced anyone
Yeah.
on stage
Yeah,
again.
that ended
Like
that
not,
season.
not since that night. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm never doing this
Man, I
again
remember that very
because
clearly.
it's
Actually.
a it's a bad moment.
That is so funny.
Yeah. Paul, what about you? Got anything?
Once upon a
fails?
time, I was playing drums at a camp, and the drum shield was really janky, and I was playing, and the drum shield fell and hit the singer in front of me, like in the back of the head, and those things are heavy.
What did
and
they do?
it was like this weird, which every worship fail is kind of like this, where it's like half the band's like, hey, roll with it, and the other half's like, we should stop and acknowledge it, right? And it's like, you're not always on the same page, but I was under the impression that we would just stop and fix the problem. We kept doing the song, and yeah, just kind of train wrecked slowly, and it was really awkward. Singer was okay.
Did
I
they
feel
like
like,
move it? Did they push it off of him?
I don't
Or,
even
like,
remember.
sl-
They had to have like moved it,
Slump
but
out of the
I don't
way?
remember how we got the drum shield back up, because those drums are loud. You can't just keep going.
I do think in almost every like worship fail video, everyone does try to keep going. There's
Yeah.
like that one where the plant is just like falling into the drum
Yeah,
cage.
that's
and he like
basically
pushes
it.
it back and he's still playing the whole time.
Yeah.
And
The
that's-
show must go
the
on.
show must go on.
Oh, man.
Man, I have a drum shield story too, because we used to like do set up and tear down at the Battleground campus every week, and so we'd have volunteers that like help us set up and tear down the stage. And so we would take down the big drum shield every week. And there was one week that my guitar was still sitting on its stand in front of the drum shield, and some volunteer like opened up the drum shield, so it was all like, and it's a very heavy giant piece of plastic thing. And then I just watched them lose control of it, and just the thing just slowly fall and completely crush my
Your
acoustic
guitar?
guitar. Yeah. And so my guitar falls off like face down on the stage, and I was like, well, I expected it to be in 1,000 pieces after I picked it
Yeah,
up.
was it
Was
okay?
it fine?
It was fine.
Wow.
It was, I mean, there might have been a couple little scratches, but it was basically fine, which is crazy.
You guys remember when Ryan's guitar fell off?
I do remember. Oh, that's a good story, too.
That's a good one, because I was like his brand new guitar, and he's like all excited to play it, and we're walking back out and praying, and then did he not have a locking strap on it yet?
I think he had just got it, so there wasn't
there
strap
was
locks
no
on it.
strap locks on it, and he goes to put it on, and it just goes. Phew.
Is that when he scared the old lady?
Yes, that's the worst
Okay.
part. Is this lady in the front row is like,
Yes.
"Ah!"
I
and,
was-
like covers her ears.
I
and
was
just,
playing
like-
drums, and I saw her clutch her chest like she had heart problems. Like, it was the
Maybe-
loudest thing.
It was
It
so
was
loud.
so
It was
loud.
so loud.
And Matt Hannon is like looking at Ryan like.
Come on, man.
Like
I feel like he didn't
I'm
miss a beat
praying.
on the prayer,
No,
though.
he
No. It was
didn't.
just
He
like-
didn't stop praying,
Yeah.
but it was like this side glance of like, "Who are you? And what are you do? Like, why are you here?" And I was like, "I don't know why I brought him.
Man,
Sorry."
that was hilarious. That was so funny.
And I feel like Ryan immediately got rid of that guitar, too. It's the
He
same
did.
thing. Like,
He
once something
did.
bad happens,
Yeah.
you're just like,
You're
nope.
this one's
It's
broken.
cursed.
It's broken.
It's cursed.
I need a new guitar, babe. I need a guitar. I need a new one.
Exactly.
Sorry, honey. I need a good guitar. This one's cursed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, those are some good stories. We could probably tell a lot
We
of
could
those
go
for,
for-
for a
Maybe
long
that
time.
should just be this.
Yeah, maybe that should
The
just
other side of the other half is
No,
worship
we
fails.
should answer some serious questions. So some of you send in questions, and if you we're gonna do 2 weeks of this actually. So we'll do it this weekend and we'll do it next weekend. So if you think of questions that you want to send in, they can send them to podcast@newheights.org. Is that
Yep.
the correct one?
Yep, that's it.
So if you think of questions you want to ask us about worship, about music, about New Heights, we would love to answer them. So I thought it would be good for us to start off today just talking about just kind of like some bigger picture questions. So I would start us off and ask the question kind of twofold a little bit. First part of it would be, what is worship? And then the second part would be, why do we sing in church? And when we sing in church, we call that worship. How are those related? What does that look like? Chad, you want to start us off?
You know I do.
Please do.
Okay.
So I think, simply put, worship is a response to God. So that response can be either appropriate or inappropriate. And so that's just simply it. So God initiates in our life. He moves, he works, he shows his care. And then how do we respond to that? How do we engage with that? That's as simple as it is just how do we respond? It's worship to God. And that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
No, it's like, I think when I talk about it, like the little phrase we always think of is it's an outward expression of the inward work of Christ in your life. So as the deeper you are coming into a relationship with him, the more he's revealing himself, the more he's changing your life, and then the more you have to offer back, or the different ways you can offer back in anything that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of our response to what God has done in our lives, and we can worship him in a variety of ways. Like every way that we live can be worship. And then the other side of that is like, how does that work with singing in the church? Why do we sing songs together? Why do we call that worship?
That's a great question. I think for me, simply is like it's commanded in Scripture.
Yeah.
So there are very two clear commands to sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. I think there are like those two very specific ones to do it in the assembly. But I think there's like 50 or more like commands to sing in the Scripture, and over like 400 like instances of people singing or songs or allusions to songs. And so it's very clearly in Scripture, and we are commanded to do it. And so I think that's the why. And then there's also the piece of like, it is, I mean, experientially a very powerful thing when people sing together in one voice. And so, yeah, that's what I'd say. Anything from you guys?
Yeah, I would echo that in the fact that there's instances of praise and worship happening through singing all throughout Scripture. And if you even just look at the Psalms, if you think about David, I mean, it said that David is a man after God's own heart, and like music and worship is such a huge part of David's story. And even if you go back to the Old Testament as well, there was a whole tribe dedicated to leading in worship, like leading in singing. And so I think it's especially meaningful that we do that together as a church, because there's so many different things about singing things about God, either about who God is, about what he has done in our lives, that can kind of turn our hearts and souls towards him. And we remind each other and we encourage each other. And that's just such a meaningful thing to be able to do that together as a church. I mean, we obviously can worship on our own. We do that on our own all the time, but there is something very meaningful about getting together and singing together. I think like the interesting thing about singing together in church is there's not really very many places where that sort of thing happens anymore. So there's not any other environments where you get together with a bunch of people and sing songs like for a long I mean, unless we're talking about karaoke, and really you only do that by yourself generally, and other people laugh at you.
They're like, woo! Yeah.
But there's not like it's such a unique environment and such a unique thing that I think it's really special in that regard. Like a group of people who believe the same thing and want to sing about this God that they know is a really special thing. I think. You have anything to add?
Oh, that's great. I think like just for me, like singing has always just been so important. So when somebody's like, what else can you do? I'm like, well, I do other things like that are made to worship God. Like I like to run, and sometimes like for me, when I go for a run, it like clears my head, and I'm like, okay, like Lord, I was like meeting you. But there were the times in my life, especially when I was a lot younger, and just like you're feeling like you're moving through like heavy things, you know, that teenage angst, and like being at the piano and just like singing was like so refreshing and so resetting. And then like the choir teacher side of me, where it's like all of those voices together, there's just power in declaring like one truth and one you know, to one God that can just pull those things out of you that have been lurking there.
I think you touched on something there too about how like that's how God created you, was to do music. I think there's a piece for every person that God has created us with different giftings and abilities. And
Right.
part of worship is using those giftings and abilities to bring honor to him and whatever, like in whatever you do. And I think that's one of the great things about worship, is that we can use the ways that God has created us to follow after him, to give him the praise, to give him the glory, in those strengths that he has given us, and even in those the weaknesses that he's given us too. Like there's ways to attribute that to his work in our lives too. And I think all of that can be worship as well.
I remember I used to think about like if I wasn't leading, like if I wasn't the one leading the song, like what was I supposed to be doing on stage? And it was like we delineated so much of like, okay, you're leading, you're the worship leader. And I'm like, it's not, like it's the whole space. It's like somebody who is so talented at playing piano might not sing like one note, but they are worshiping because they're offering their gifts and their talents back to God to create this space within the team. Or like somebody who is like so, I think of some of our drummers who are so passionate about drumming, and they're like, I want to just build this space in my house so that I can practice drums, so I can go in there and I can like worship, so that I can create this space and this environment for our church like on the weekend. And I'm like, that is worship leading, like through music, through this gift of talents. But then you have other people who are like, well, I'm a coach, and like I want to give that gift and talent back by, you know, working with high schoolers in that setting, or, you know, people who are teaching, like that, them surrendering their gifts, like it's the same. Just we like to do it with music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's that important distinction of that. Like I said, the worship is the response to God with everything he's given us. We're giving back to him, and we're responding to him appropriately through submission and through ascribing glory to him, all those things. And you can do that in your personal life, just with whether it's running or coaching or the things that God has gifted you with, you're giving them back to him. But the distinction that sometimes we need to talk about is the fact that when we gather together as God's people on a weekend, or whenever we gather together as his church, that there is something powerful when we sing together. And oftentimes that's what we call worship. But that's just corporate worship. And we are commanded to, when we come together, to sing. And the whole service is worship, but there is a musical portion in which we corporately sing together. And oftentimes that is the only thing that's called worship. But worship is more than that. But when we talk about the church gathered in worship,
And
we're
like
talking about
what?
corporate singing usually. So
I think music does have a unique. It's unique in the way that it can move people's hearts and can stir, and not just even. I mean, in any environment, I think music does have that like ability to shape the way that you feel, and like that's the amazing thing about how I think God created music, is that it can be used in very good ways to remind us, to bring us joy. Like we can sing a song and like it can bring joy to us. It can remind us of things, and like that's the beauty of music too, which I think is also why we do that.
Yeah, it evokes a lot of emotion, and it tells a story. Like I think of it like that's like the ancient reason why it's like telling, like the Levites were like, look what God has done for us. David was like, look what you have done for me. I mean, like a lot of the Psalms end that way, right? He's all like sad, and then he's like, okay, and then he's like, okay, God, you've been faithful. So it's like that commanding of our souls, that singing of that, and it's very unifying.
Yeah.
and what you said connects the emotion. It connects us to our emotions sometimes. I think sometimes the cool thing is with certain poetry or things that are written, in my brain, I'm like, I would never have been able to put it that way or think about it that way. But this artist put it in such a way that like helps me connect it to something deeper inside me, that I'm like, oh yeah, that really hits and touches me. And I wouldn't have been able to like connect to that emotion if I hadn't had that moment of singing with this group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think there's something too, even about like being in a room with people who are participating in worship. I know for me personally, that was like a big thing when I was in college and first started like playing worship music in this like college ministry that we're at. Like I remember going there and being like, oh wow, there's like really something here in this group of people like really passionately worshiping together that really can affect your soul. And it was one of those things for me where I was like, oh wow, I really like, it spoke to me a lot. And I didn't even, that wasn't even the point that I decided to be involved in leading worship or like become a worship leader, but that was just the part of like, oh, I want to be a part of this because this is like such an impactful thing. And so I very much, it's one of, we talk about this a lot. Like we want to have environments. Like if you come into one of our services, if you're a new person and hasn't experienced church, we would love for you to come in to a place where we're all singing together and feel that, where you're like, oh wow, what's going on here? Like this is special. This is like, I would like to know what all these people care about so much, kind of thing. So, okay, let's go on to a question that we get asked about songs a fair amount, like the music that we do, or people suggest songs that we should do. So I think the question would be, how do we choose new music? How do we choose the songs that we sing together as a church? Who wants to start?
Should we
us
rock,
off?
paper, scissors? Ready, go.
Becca, why don't you start us
Oh,
off?
I get to start? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think, so one thing that happens, like with the song that we're doing, Hope on the Horizon, this is my favorite way that these things happen, is we were just in the office and I can't even remember what we were looking for, something else. We were like looking for something else. And I'm sitting there and I'm like typing, and our desks are like, we're like opposite. So I'm like not looking at Chad. I'm like typing on a computer and I go, that's a good song. And Chad goes, have you heard this song? And I go, no, but that's a good song. And it was just like the uniqueness of the song. It like evoked in myself and Chad. And we were like, we need to listen to this music. And the same thing, there's songs that happens too. For me personally, where then I'm like, I think that's just for me, like that's just hitting for me. And like we even have songs that we've tried at New Heights or other places that we're like, well, that didn't work, and we like it, but it doesn't translate. Like, and then there's other songs where you're like, our church needs to sing this message or this truth, or this really fits with the sermon series that we're going into. And so there's like songs that we look at like thematically, but and then the practical side of it, which you put together for us this year, which I actually like love. You made like a spreadsheet, which sounds like so nerdy, but it's great because all of us can look at it and we can have those moments with a song, like where we're sitting in the office and you can pop it into the spreadsheet and we can be like, this is the song, this is who it's by. You have like the tempo, the artist, why you think it would be good, like in fitting for our church. And then we can all look at it and listen to it and we collectively talk about it. But for me, I think that when the like that organic like hitting of the spirit, like with the song, whether if it's like this type of music, that is always really special when a song like lands like that. And then when you're like, can this be a song for our entire church, or is this a song for us or a song for me? And I think sometimes it's a combination of both. I lost my train of thought. There was one more thing I was gonna say. It'll come back.
Yeah,
it'll come back.
Well, we do choose songs together. I think that's such a big piece of that is like, we want all of we're a church that has different campuses,
right,
different locations. We want we want our church to be singing the same thing. And if you go to one of our campuses, you'd be singing the same songs.
I was just going to say, do people know that? Like, I feel like
I don't
people
know if they
maybe
do know that,
like,
so that's why
yeah, that's good. I think people maybe know that without really realizing it. But like, we sing, for the most part, the same songs at every campus every weekend.
Yes.
Which in my opinion, has a lot of advantages.
Yeah. And so when we get together and talk about new songs to do, first of all, there is a lot of worship music out there. This wasn't always the case. It used to be like there wasn't as much good music that you could play. Yeah. Now there is a lot. So we listen to a lot of songs, and there's a couple pieces in that. I do think you talked a little bit about this, which is like the song really does have to resonate with us, like personally as leaders. And we all have different preferences on songs. Like there might be songs that we do that like some of us don't like better than others, which we're not going to mention any of those songs right now before someone does.
We're like negotiating. Well, I'll give you this one if you give me. You tried to barter with me the other day. He was like, if we do this one, if I say yes, and then I was like,
I don't know about that.
Yes, so he did. He tried to barter. Matt was there. It wasn't that blatant of a barter, but it definitely was.
Well, but the piece of it is that like the truth of it is like we do need to, like, our teams and us as leaders, if we don't resonate with a song and really believe in that song, and then it's hard to lead it as leaders. Like, and so that's a big piece of it at first is like, does it speak to us? And then a huge part of it that we talk about a lot is what does our church need to be singing right now? Like what? Yeah. And that changes by the season. And sometimes we sing songs about a certain thing that we feel like that's what our church needs to sing about. This weekend in particular, that song you mentioned, Hope on the Horizon, we're doing specifically with this series that Mark started, because it just felt like it fit so well with that series and really spoke to like the emotional weight of what it feels like to be stuck and to have that hope. And so that's a big part of it as well.
Yep.
What would you add to that?
Yeah, I would add, I mean, above all that, is it true? Is this something that is theologically sound?
Yeah, we should have said that first.
Can we flip the order? Can Chad go first?
Oh, yeah, also...
See, this is why he should always go first.
Oh, also, is it true?
Jesus.
It's a given.
The Bible.
Yes.
I mean... It would not pass.
Right.
Whatever. We could go, ooh, that's a really good song, right? And we might like to hear it, but then when we sit with it and go, is this actually theologically sound? Is it saying something that we want our church to repeat over and over again? You know what I mean? Because songs are they're gonna inform and really.
When songs emphasize different things.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the biggest thing that we go, is this song going to edify our church? And is it true? It is awesome. Then let's move it down the thing. If we look at it and go, I don't know if we agree with the theology in this song or whatever, then we'll probably move it off the list and not do it. So that's another big thing. And then another thing that we think about is just singability.
Yes.
So, I mean, we are doing corporate worship. So we are leading a big group of people. And so if the song is unsingable, and some of this is subjective because some people might be listening and going like, yeah, some of your songs are not singable. But in general, we try to
for us.
Yeah.
Well,
we try to find melodies and song structure that is accessible and isn't going to leave people behind. And that's really important too.
Yeah.
Because the goal is participation.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like us getting up and slamming this song and being like, wow, that was great. That was a great moment. And people are like, I don't even know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And participation that doesn't take like 6 months to get there for people. Like,
we want it singable.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think too, there's a piece with songs. I feel like sometimes with songs, there is an intangible factor to them and I call it like an anointing kind of thing on songs, because there are certain songs sometimes where you're like, I don't know why this song, like is as good as it, because at face value, you know, if you take a song like 10,000 Reasons or something, like where you're like, this song is at face value is just kind of a normal song, but it has this like thing that like people really grab onto and people want to sing it. And like, there's certain songs like that. There's this intangible quality. And that's sometimes what happens when we talk about playing a song and maybe we don't do it for a super long amount of time because it didn't catch on in the way that we thought it would, kind of thing. But I do think worship songs have that sometimes too, where there's just like a piece of like, man, this song really resonates in a way that you can't like describe on paper, or like there's not a formula to it necessarily.
And sometimes like it's different for each one of us, but there's a song that we might put forward as like, hey, we should do this song, and I might feel like, I don't know, it might be good. I think it's a fine song, but I'm not sure how it will go. And then we do it, and it's like, oh man, people will write in on that song. They love it, and like I didn't know that was going to happen, but it did. And it's just interesting.
Which is the goal. I mean,
exactly.
And it's like that laying aside of our own preferences of like what we're like, I don't really know, or I'd really love to sing this song, but okay, like it's not gonna hit. Or you're like, there's definitely songs that we've done that I'm like, I don't know, like What a Beautiful Name. I always joke about that one. Like that's like my favorite worship. I'm like, let's do that song every week. I didn't want to do it. Like the first time that I remember, it was around Thanksgiving when we started doing it, and I was like, Tim, I do not want to sing this song. And then I think the first time we did it in a setting, and I was like, this song is awesome. People love it. Like, it's like that movement of your soul and the movement of like everybody's collective being. And you're like, that's really great. And it's, that anointing. That's good. That's good, Matt.
I think what you were saying as far as the theology of songs and whether a song is true kind of leads into another question that we get asked from time to time, which is, why do we do songs from other churches? And I think it's asked specifically sometimes in regards to churches that we might not line up with exactly theologically. So what is how do we think through those sorts of things, and why do we do songs from other churches?
Man, that's a great question.
It's a great question.
It's fraught with difficulty.
It is fraught with difficulty.
But I think where we have landed on that is we oftentimes take a song on its own merit. So trying to take it out of, and it's kind of hard to do this, but take it out of its whatever context of where it's coming from and say, is this song, do we think this song is helpful for our church to sing? Yes. Okay. Let's put it through our system to see whether we would want to do it. And the truth is, right now there are lots of churches that are writing songs for the global church. Right? They feel called to write songs for all of the churches, not just their local church. And so when they're writing, they're thinking about more churches than just their own. And so oftentimes they're not like a lot of nuanced theological things within them that we would go like, oh, don't say that. And sometimes there are, and we wouldn't do those songs. But when it comes to the issues that we would disagree with from other churches, I think we try to take the stance of like, do we think that those people are going to be in heaven with us? Like, if we think that, then sure, we may disagree with some of their methodology or some of their theology, or we might even think some of it might be problematic, and so we have to weigh that out. But we're not going to just dismiss a song just because we have slight theological differences from someone. Because the truth is, like, every church has its problems, you know? And so there might be churches that align with us perfectly theologically, but they have some other problematic things. And so are we going to not do the songs from those churches? You know, because they might have some leadership issues or some like unhealthy practices within that. And so where are we, if we're going to look into everything, we're going to find something that we would find problematic probably.
So where do you draw the line?
Where do we draw the line? And I think even go to like, okay, so we don't only do hymns. Well, I think if you looked into hymn writers, you would begin to unearth theological
Maybe
things
would not
that you're
be
like,
so impressed.
I don't know, maybe we should do that hymn, because
Yeah.
either that person is like walked away from their faith, or was like in a different theological camp than we are. But it's had a passage of time, and we're like, well, that song's fine because it's old.
Yeah. We're in an interesting time in culture where we sort of have access to a lot of information about every church.
Yes.
That we
Or
that
person.
traditionally or every person
Like just
that
a
we
person. Yeah.
traditionally would not really have had access to.
Right.
And trying to sift through that. So I think that's where this question comes through sometimes, because they're like, people would be like, why would you do this song from this church? We don't agree with everything that this church emphasizes. And I would agree with exactly with what you're saying. I mean, we don't agree with everything that church emphasizes. And that's the reason we've decided really the only way to do that is to take every song on its own merits. We wouldn't do every song on a particular album from a particular church. There's definitely songs on there that's like, this is not something that New Heights is going to focus on in a particular song. And so we don't do those songs. But it's really tough to be like, I think sometimes we think we know what goes on every place or what every church believes, and I don't know that we do in the same way that we think we do sometimes.
And if we want to create an us and them sort of mentality, it gets really tricky. And it's like, well, we have all the right answers and the right theology, and everyone else doesn't. Like we begin to put ourselves in these camps that are sometimes helpful if you're like, well, we need to define for ourselves what lane we're in. But if we say, well, we are the right ones and they are the wrong ones, like it creates a weird dynamic or an unhealthy dynamic that I would say I don't want to participate in.
Yeah, we've tried as a church over the years. I think we have tried very hard to be about the global church and helping churches be successful. I mean, even if you go back to Chad and I were both involved in church planning before we came to New Heights in different churches, and I was a part of a church plant that wasn't the same denomination as New Heights, and they still, like, all the church planters from all the denominations would come together and meet together here at New Heights, and that's just like traditionally been what we've been about. And so I do love that fact, and even just the fact that the three of us all come from very different backgrounds, like in churches. So we have a lot of differences even just here, and so we really tend to not emphasize the churches when it comes to music, and let the music stand on its own merit. And that's not to say we don't look at songs very closely to see what they say.
Right.
Sometimes we've even adjusted lyrics a little bit because we don't love the way a particular thing is stated. We don't try not to do that super often, but generally now we would just be like, well, let's just not do that song if there's something
because
like
there's
that.
just like one of you said, there's just so much music too to weed through.
Yeah.
It's like you can find a song that's saying a lot of the same message.
Yeah. All right. Did we answer that sufficiently? That's a big subject.
No,
I feel
that
like
was great.
there's a lot of stuff that we could say about that.
Yeah.
Tiptoe around it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's answer this one. How do I join a worship team? So say somebody wants to be a part of the worship ministry here at New Heights. What does that look like? How could they get involved? Sounds like an ad.
How do I get involved? You get involved by donations accepted at.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh, you okay over there?
Yeah, I'm stuck. My cable stuck. It's good. We're
Okay,
good.
it's fine.
We have an audition process here at this church,
It's so great.
which it sounds way more
Official.
official. I mean, it's official. We kind of have to be, but so the first thing is we ask you to basically fill out an audition form, and that audition form just helps us to get some information, like quick information from you, like what campus do you attend, how long have you been playing music, what instrument are you focused on, just kind of some of your personal story. So how long have you been at New Heights? What's your faith story? Kind of how are you interacting with your faith journey? And then from there, it moves to we kind of reach out to you and say, hey, would you mind sending us a video of you playing, singing, or whatever you are trying out for. And then from there, we move to giving you a call and trying to move you onto a team. Did I miss a step?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have people from lots of different backgrounds that serve on worship ministry. One of the things that we do here, which is really awesome, is like we've always had a really strong student ministries worship kind of thing, and so there's a lot of people that play on the weekends that even started off that way, like started off doing worship in high school, college.
Isn't that where like Justin and Brian and like those guys all started?
A lot of those guys started there. Yeah. So it's that's one thing we emphasize a lot is trying to get students involved in doing worship early, because sometimes it can be harder as an adult sometimes if you don't spend a lot of time playing music to just kind of like hop in and do that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely we'd love to have more. Yeah, we always would love to have more volunteers. If you play music or sing and want to audition, you can go to our website and find out about that.
Yeah, it's like newheights.org/serve, right?
Yeah.
And there's the forms like
It
right in there.
starts you on the process.
Yeah, it's great.
Yep.
It's a long process.
It is. No, it's not. I don't know. It's a process, though.
Yeah. No.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, I think one of the things that it's a misunderstanding sometimes is that you look up and see that the stage is full of musicians, and you would think like, oh, they're covered. They don't need my help. And we probably do need your help.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a lot of campuses and a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Like there's it takes a lot of musicians to make it happen each weekend.
This wasn't just a commercial to get people.
I know.
No. This is a real question
But that was a real question.
that was sent in by a real person.
By
Okay.
a real person. But really, like, we are so volunteer driven.
Yep.
I mean, that is the focus of all of our ministries. So if we don't have the volunteers, like, we can't do it.
Yeah.
So we need you.
And I would
we
say
want
even to outside of worship, we have lots of spots for
True.
people who
Yes.
want to help out with tech kind of stuff,
Yes.
whether
Tech.
it's lighting, sound, ProPresenter, like the words and stuff that's on the screen, are all ways that you can serve in the overall like production ministry at New Heights. Okay, all right, that's a lot of questions.
End commercial.
What do you think, Paul? Should we do more questions? Or should
We could see what questions people write in for next week.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that. So if you have a question that you want to ask, you can send it to podcast@newheights.org. I would even say too, if you have a clarifying question about something we talked about this week, ask that as well, and we could talk about that next
away.
week too.
Yeah.
In case we forgot something, like whether or not a song is true.
Oh,
I mean-
gosh.
We got to it.
We got to it.
Eventually.
We're not really linear thinkers.
We are
we're,
not.
We're creative people.
Yeah.
I also think it's like we're all on the same. This is we're all on the same page for the most part. So we're like, I don't know. Yeah. It makes sense to us.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, hopefully, I mean, I do think I love having these conversations with you guys, because I do think our goal is to help people grow in their worship at New Heights. And so when people have questions like this, we love to answer questions like this. So like it's one reason we wanted to come on here and do this is because, we want people to know like where we're coming from, what our heart is in this, what the process is like for everything that we do. And so, it's fun just to be able to talk about what we get to do here. And it's a good time.
Good.
Okay. All right. So I think we are done for this week, and we will see you again next weekend.